Georgia's Republican Secretary of State just dropped a bombshell on Donald Trump. This is the individual in charge of running the election in Georgia, and he's got some bad news for Donald Trump because it goes right at his strategy to win the 2024 election. Just wait until you hear about this one. All eyes are on Georgia as both candidates see it as their key to victory in the upcoming election. Kamala Harris has invested a lot into winning this state that Joe Biden flipped for the first time since the early 90s. But Donald Trump's got his eyes set on Georgia as well, and he's got some allies on the state election board that came up with some new rules earlier this year that complicate the tabulation process of the votes. The goal being to slow down the vote counting so that Donald Trump can theoretically interject conspiracy theories and claim that the election is being stolen from him. But thankfully, just last week, a judge in Georgia ruled that these new rules are unconstitutional. According to this CNN article, among the rules Fulton County Superior Court Judge Thomas Cox said violated state law are two that would require county election officials to conduct a reasonable inquiry into election results before certifying them and allow them to examine all election-related documentation created during the conduct of elections prior to certification of results. After their passage in August, the two rules were quickly challenged by Democrats and others who feared that they would give officials in the state broad authority to delay or decline altogether their certification of the results in order to look for alleged election fraud or abuse. But Cox said in his ruling that the reasonable inquiry rule adds an additional and undefined step into the certification process, and that the examination rule creates a statutorily unbounded scope under which election superintendents can consider unauthorized materials when tabulating, canvassing, and certifying election results. And there was an even more shocking rule that the state elections board passed that included hand counting all ballots. Among the other rules Cox invalidated is one that would have required officials to hand count the number of ballots cast at each polling place, saying Georgia law didn't support the requirement. So thankfully, a judge saw the light and struck down these unconstitutional rules passed by Trump's friends on the state election board in Georgia. But this was just part of the game plan by Donald Trump to claim fraud in the upcoming election. As you can see by the headline here in Rolling Stone, if Trump loses again, Republicans are ready to falsely blame immigrants. Republicans are leading a wave of voter purge lawsuits that observers believe are designed to help Trump claim the election was stolen from him. So this is part of the plan by Trump to claim that non-citizens are voting en masse and costing him the election when he loses in just 2 weeks. But now the Republican Secretary of State in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, has dropped a bombshell on Donald Trump. Earlier this year, Brad Raffensperger announced that his office would be conducting an audit of the voter rolls to see if any non-citizens are registered to vote or have voted in the past. And now we have the results of that audit, and they're not good for Donald Trump's narrative that tons of non-citizens are voting in our elections. The Georgia Secretary of State's office found very few non-citizens registered to vote. According to this Associated Press article, Georgia's top elections official said Wednesday that a check of voter rolls found that 20 of the 8.2 million people registered to vote in the state are not U.S. citizens. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger said during a news conference that the voter registrations for those people had been canceled and that they will be referred to local prosecutors for potential criminal charges. So thanks to this extensive audit by the Secretary of State's office, a minuscule amount of people were found to be registered to vote that shouldn't be. Listen to Brad Raffensperger explain what went down.
This summer, I instructed my elections division to conduct a comprehensive citizenship audit using our new voter registration system, Jarvis, and cross-referencing our data with all the databases available to our office. That's the second audit in 2 years. This is the most comprehensive citizenship check conducted in the history of Georgia, if not the most comprehensive check ever conducted in the United States of America. Utilizing records from county courts, the Georgia Department of Driver Services, and the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, we were able to conclusively find 20 non-citizens who were on the voter rolls. All 20 of these voter registrations have been canceled, and all of them are being referred to local prosecuting law enforcement.
This completely undermines Donald Trump's upcoming argument to explain why he lost the election. He is going to claim that millions of non-citizens participated in the election and voted for Kamala Harris. And now, thanks to Georgia's Republican Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and his office's extensive audit of the voter rolls, we know that there are very, very few non-citizens even registered to vote. And this doesn't even mean that they can vote. You would still have to present a valid ID to go vote. So who knows what's going on with these 20 people, but they got caught. And this just shows you that in a big state like Georgia, which is one of the battleground states, there are very few non-citizens voting. Of course it's going to happen. We are a giant nation with 340 million people. So people are going to do things that they shouldn't do. But the point is that there was nowhere near enough of this happening to influence the election one way or the other. So Donald Trump can run his mouth with his conspiracy theories, but the evidence points to the exact opposite.